Good afternoon, good evening, good day, aloha and welcome. I am Storytime. This is video one of content. I am in the convergence of so many different courses right now. Just to name drop, Kerwin Ray, the Accelerator. That was a week-long program, and that was just previous, a few weeks ago. And I'm just now getting around to like some of the homework that I should have been doing then, so bad me. But then there's another one, Career Hearted. And I've been auditing that course and been going through and seeing the work that Jeff has done. It's been absolutely amazing. And it's really put a twist on, as it should. It's really put a twist on how I'm trying to approach things now. And so this being content to tell my story, to explain why I enjoy the tarot. I'm a master tarot reader. I am a personality profiler. So I'll look at your birth chart. I feel that I'll be able to explain the energies, everything that was going on in the cosmos at a snapshot of your birth. I feel that I could be like, hey, this is what explains you for, a certain context, and whether you believe or you don't believe, that's up to you. One of the things that has really driven me, because life of lies, if you will, whether they were inadvertent or, it was just something that, someone was told and then someone was told and then, this is how it plays out. Once you discover the truth and you really get wounded because you're like, well, how much of that really is me? Where do I go from here? How do I reconcile? It's kind of like that ego death. You get shattered. Your personality, the paradigm shift that you have when you realize that you're not the center of the universe, sort of thing. And one of those things that really hit home to me was when I started going through tarot after I'd gotten out of the military, and really getting into astrology along with it. And when you look at your birth chart, when you look at your natal chart, and you look at what was happening in the sky at the time, like literally in the cosmos at that time, turns out it's not the same thing. You have tropical Western astrology, and then you have the other side, which is, and I say the other side because you could say it's Jyotish, it's Vedic, it's Sidereal, and those mean different things when you get further into that classification of East versus West when it comes to astrology. And finding out that when like the things that you look at in the paper, you see your horoscope, and that's your sun sign. And most people don't know that you have a sign for everything that's out there. So just like there's the 12 zodiacs, starts with Aries, ends with Pisces. You have 12 houses that's in that circular birth natal chart. Is most common that you'll see is that type. And not even getting into the explanations of different types of house structures. But then inside of that, you have everything that is in our solar system. Pluto. How far down the rabbit hole do you really want to go? Because there's some people that add in like planetoids and comets and and then the moons of certain of all the planets, so like Chiron and Caribus would be, or Caribus, I think is how it is, they I think is the name for Cerberus, sort of, that dog image. It's one of Pluto's moons. And then you've got Neptune, Uranus, Jupiter, Saturn. Every planet has a sign in your chart. And they all do the same thing. Like when you start into astrology, you'll see that Aries means Aries. The second house means this. A stellium means that. So the terminology is the same, but the difference between tropical Western astrology and Eastern sidereal or Vedic, so Vedic, they'll stick with, like, the Indian. Well, there's actually 4 different types of charts that they use: North, South, East, and West Indian. But they'll stick with what's called the Hermetic 7. And so it's the planets that you can see with the naked eye from planet Earth. So Saturn this way, and then including the sun and the moon. And then the points that we would call in different, outside of Vedic astrology, we would call like the true node or the north node and south node. They will be known as Rahu and Ketu in that style. So that has a whole different meaning. There's different names, it's different ideology. They do not use anything that comes from anything outside of them. I know that's quite vague, but Western astrology started in like Babylon and Sumer, and then aged forward this way. But then you get to ancient Greece, and that's where a lot of the current structure for what we mostly see, that's what you get, is the 12 houses in that circular structure. It's looked at from a geocentric point of view, because even though we now know that we go around the sun and not everything else, when you look at a birth chart, it's still, we are the center. So you look at it and and you've got the sun in a spot, you've got the moon in a spot, you've got Mercury, all these individual planets are going to be somewhere. And so looking at all these different energies and where they're at, their placement against something else, when you have like a trine, so it makes like a triangle across the chart. So planets will be 60 degrees or 120 degrees out of sync from each other, or that is the sync of them, is that they would make like a triangle going across. And trines and sextiles are harmonious in a certain form and fashion, as opposed to like a square, which would be at 90 degrees. And so thinking of like squaring up to someone, and your energies conflicting, and then you also have to look at, well, how do the planets view each other? So this is something outside of you. How do they view each other? So Mercury could be a friend to these planets over here, be neutral to these planets over here, and be an enemy to these planets over here. But when you look at the perspective from that planet, Mercury may say, hey, that's an enemy to me, but then Neptune may say, hey, well, Mercury is a friend of mine. And that's just an example. I don't believe that those two actually have any kind of conjunction together. But it's, the view from one point may be completely different than the view coming back. So you have to look at that, depending on what the question may be. If someone just wanted a deciphering of their chart, this is basically to cut away the conditioning, everything that you have been piled onto you from your parents and that lineage and siblings, the gender and the sex and the place of where you are, like as far as your body, because you are not your mind, you are not your body, but they are a part of you, if you wanted to get spiritual and philosophical and whatnot. So if depending on your orientation, and how you view yourself and how you portray yourself to the world, it may be different in Seattle, Washington, or Houston, Texas, or New York, New York, or over here in Australia. You know, I'm in Western Australia. This is where I live now. And so whoever you are is completely different wherever you are, you know, and you are not who other people perceive you as. So who is really you? You know, like my mother views me as someone different. My partner views me as someone different than her. My daughter views me as someone different than they. And none of them are really me, you know, because I'm an eternal student. I'm still learning me. Now I can say, you know, what it is at my birth chart, that natal chart. That's what I use for my personality profiling. You know, and so that's just the start. That's to get people to understand, you know, this is what I was born as, right? So like I was born this way, right? And that ideology is coming from, you know, you chose this life. Think about that. You know, there's you, like Y-O-U, all lowercase. And then if you think of like this cosmic consciousness, and I don't want to say any kind of religious name, you know, I prefer just source. So above everything that is a human connotation, we're talking about just as wide and spiritual as you can go. Just going all the way up to the top. We eventually are one with source. We are energy. And so you have this third dimension, and who knows above, you know, there's so many different people that are saying what they're saying, and every path is different. That's why you have your own individual path. But there's still something more than just this fleshy meat suit. Again, you are not your mind and you are not your body, but they are a part of you. Okay? So then that you is now, I'm talking in like a capital Y. Like a capital Y-O-U. So it could be, you know, your divine sense, you know, your God consciousness. It could be just that step up, you know, that soul that maybe think of it like Dungeons and Dragons or like a video game like Skyrim or something. Like you created a character, and because you are so much more on a cosmic scale, so much more smarter, so much more wise, so much more intuitive and everything, like you can get down to a mathematical scale and be like, this is why I'm choosing this character. I want him to look this way. I want him to do this thing. You know, like my hair, this is natural. You know, I had long hair down to here. I had a big beard, mustache and everything, but I have alopecia. So my hair fell out when I was 30, you know, so this was now like 6 years ago, you know, yeah, about 6 years ago. So I hardly have any eyebrows, I hardly have any eyelashes, my hair still comes in super patchy, if at all, but that's okay, because like that was part of my transformation, you know, going from a caterpillar to a little beautiful butterfly, and you know, you can see that in a progressed chart. So you have your natal chart, which is to start, and that's your the thread point. Okay, so if you wanted to think of like, here's a birth date and a death date, and that line that's in between, you know, that's the string of your life. And when you turn it this way and you look at what it is, you know, that's what you can think of as that round chart is, you know, Jupiter's here, and you know, Jupiter, Saturn, and Mercury are all right here, and the sun's right here, and this is that. So you could think of like there's this inner core, and then all these different fiber energies, you know, are the little bits, and they kind of weave their way, and as they twirl on, you know, that's the cord of your life. And each bit of that cord, you know, it's gonna fluctuate, you know, because ups and downs. It's a waveform. You're gonna travel through space and time. You're spiraling forward. always up, always forward, you know, because you may feel like you're just going in a circle, but when you turn it sideways, you see that you're going in a waveform, like a sinusoidal wave, right? But if you change it at an angle, you'll see that that waveform and that circle are actually that spiral. Now, whether you're hanging on that spiral and you're being, you know, being thrown and tossed over, that's, you know, you can't let go. Like that's your life, you know. You may feel like things are falling apart, but you have to think like, I'm the one that's weaving this web, and I'm doing this because the planets are going on, so they're going to change. That's the whole retrograde, and you know, planets pass each other, so it changes. And that's the great thing, is that everything changes. The only constant is change. And then you find, well, hey, you know, like things that I thought were bad before actually turned out to be pretty okay, you know, or it ends up being amazing, you know, because you end up cutting off some of the baggage. You're able to cut down and say, you know what, well, this is self, this is me, right? And then this is not self, this is not me. And when you really get focused on that, then you can start to see where it is that you're wanting to go. Be like, this is how I am. Now that I consciously understand this, I can take and I can direct that energy, and I can focus my strengths. And so, and I found this out. It's beautiful. Focus. Follow one course until successful. Beautiful. It's this, and it's very Sagittarian, I feel, because it's like a bow and arrow. You know, you got to knock in at present. You know, so it's that realization. You know, opportunity knocking. So but then the base of the arrow. At the fletching, you know, you would knock onto the string. So you knock your arrow, and then you got to pull back to the past, so you figure out what that beginning point is. So here's where I am, wherever it may be, and here's where I started. Now I can adjust that, and then I can see where I'm wanting to go, and then, you know, and then you go on. And you're like, okay, now I'm consciously going to where I want to go. I'm miserable at my job. I don't like this person that I'm around all the time. You know, whatever it may be, all these things. You can consciously change everything. You know, you can't change the people around you, but you can change the people around you. You know what I'm saying? So, it's clearing away the excess, getting down to your true core, and being happy with yourself, getting centered, and finding that it's okay. You know, like, we've all been broken. We're all broken, and it's beautiful, because you can't make a disco ball without breaking the mirror a couple of times. You know what I'm saying? So we're all our own beautiful snowflake, but you can't make this winter wonderland with just one snowflake. You know, everybody is has their own individual path, and takes their own course in life. And no matter how much you want to group things all together and put labels on it all and say, I'm a part of this and I'm a part of that, you know, that's still just conditioning, saying, you know, I have to say that I'm part of this part of the tribe, and I have to say that I have to click in with this one, or else I'm not going to be loved, I'm not going to be wanted. But it's about coming in. It's about finding yourself. It's about loving yourself first, as within, so without, as above, so below. I want to finish this first bit by saying that I love you. Thank you for reaching this point. I hope that there'll be more to come. Well, I know that there will be more to come, and I am going to bring much more structure to it, because now I'm going to be breaking these down into smaller videos. I'm going to cut this off before I get to 20 minutes. I just want to end in gratitude and say that I am very appreciative of this opportunity and being able to bring my gifts to the world, and I hope to hear your story. So take care. Aloha. Blessed be.